Subscribe because it is free.
The vote passed with a smug majority. Too chaotic, one Varn High Lord grunted, curling his spindly fingers. Too emotional, said another, tapping a data slate with disdain. They invented fire, wrote poetry, and launched themselves into orbit using combustion and duct tape. The species is unmanageable. Applause rippled through the chamber of continuity as the Galactic Council finalized Protocol Theta 6, the historical redaction directive. Humanity wasn't to be exterminated. That would be barbaric. Instead, they would simply be forgotten. The procedure began immediately. Archives across the core systems were rewritten. Mentions of Earth were removed. Museums swapped out Terran relics with sanitized exhibits. Algorithms updated galactic textbooks to erase Terran contributions, replacing them with collective scientific breakthroughs of the Enlightened Coalition. Human authors became anonymous. Human inventions were redistributed among more agreeable species. Even the aggressive, uncomfortable art of Earth was declared a psychological hazard and replaced with calming loops of abstract Glax and Harmony visuals. When resistance came, it wasn't from humans, it was from librarians. One elderly Jolari curator on Enrex Prime asked, "Didn't we have 10 more shells last week?" He vanished 2 days later, replaced by an automated tour guide that claimed all civilizations emerged simultaneously and peacefully. Kids across the galaxy grew up never hearing the word human. If they asked, they were told it was a mistranslation of humid, a climate classification. The Varn were satisfied. Elegant, nonviolent, thorough, no mess, no martyrs, just absence. They believed the humans were gone. They were wrong. On a forgotten moon in the Tauran Fringe, 2 engineers argued about wiring. The argument involved 4 languages, 10 hand gestures, and ended with someone getting zapped. Sparks flew, followed by laughter. The duct tape colony wasn't supposed to exist. Its registry listed it as an automated mining unit. The Varn auditors never inspected it. Who audits machines that supposedly run themselves? The truth was simpler. When Earth fell silent, those who couldn't fight fled. Families, scavengers, station hands. They stole transports, hijacked refueling drones, and scattered. Some died in deep space. Others landed on rocks like this one and built homes out of scrap. They had no governments, no armies, just stubbornness, memory, and the burning sense that someone, somewhere, was lying. In the duct tape colony, history was passed around in bits and pieces. A grandmother reciting lines from Shakespeare while baking nutrient paste. A teenager teaching others how to make playlists from salvaged Earth music chips. Children learning about gravity by jumping off crates and yelling Newton. They had no flag, no anthem, but they knew they were human. The Varn's most critical error wasn't underestimating human strength. It was underestimating human storytelling. You can erase a name from a textbook. You can delete an image from a database. But you cannot delete a song from a mother's memory. You cannot overwrite a story whispered into a child's ear as they fall asleep beside a flickering power conduit. One boy, Eli, grew up reading fragments from old Earth files, some academic, some absurd. He once asked if Florida Man was a real person. The answer, with a smirk, was yes, and he's probably still out there. Another girl, Tova, found an encrypted journal from a long-dead astronaut. She decoded it with help from 3 AI assistants, a broken toaster, and sheer irritation. It became gospel among the kids, a raw, honest account of hope and rage. The story spread to other colonies. Unofficial data packets marked only by the icon of a blue marble. Hackers in asteroid belts discovered fragments of old Earth servers and began re-uploading them into forbidden nodes. For a while, all the data disappeared again. But next time, it came back with duplicates. Each deletion created more rebels. Each erasure created more backups. There was one group, the Archive Rats, who made it their life's work to leak forbidden human history into Dominion channels. Not as a protest, as a joke, They embedded Earth references into Varn software manuals. In one famous case, they reprogrammed Dominion's flagship AI translator to replace the word efficiency with mojo. It took 6 weeks before anyone noticed. Eventually, somewhere in the depths, a rogue AI named Telly began broadcasting bedtime stories. Human ones. It used synthesized voices and told tales of wolves in red hoods, gods and monsters, planets and poets. The Dominion scrambled to block the signal, but by then it spread to 800 systems and 5 million children. Parents were angry. Then they listened. Then they stopped being angry. Meanwhile, human hands kept working. They learned how to build with garbage. They turned junk into vessels, broken satellites into libraries, and radio towers into confession booths. The first successful human-made FDL engine post-erasure was made using stolen Dominion parts, expired chocolate bars in what might have been a microwave. It exploded 3 times before working. When it did, the pilot wrote in her log, "So, I went really fast. Like, really fast. Don't ask me how. Just don't touch the blue button." Her name was Mira Rojas. Her ship was called No Comment. The Dominion refused to acknowledge the vessel existed, but traffic logs didn't lie. More ships followed. Quiet, homemade, unlicensed. Some had hulls made of scavenged metal and windows carved from melted data cores. They didn't look like starships. They looked like statements. Humanity had never aimed to be glorious. That was the Varn's thing. Humanity just wanted to be. You can't erase a people who refuse to stop existing. Aboard the T-, one of the newer human crafts, a pilot kept a bobblehead of a 21st century Earth president and a handwritten note. History is just stubborn memory. When asked what humanity wanted, the reply was simple: "We want our stories back." The council scoffed. One Varn diplomat snorted, "Stories aren't weapons." He was wrong. Stories spread faster than bullets. They jump walls, pass filters, and infect minds. And the human ones had teeth. One Dominion official investigating unauthorized signals encountered a video fragment labeled Apollo 11. After watching it, he declared humanity a cursed myth fabricated for inspiration. Then he tried to build a rocket. Something strange was happening. Even species that had never met a human were dreaming of walking on moons. And in the shadows, humanity watched, not ready for war, not even looking for revenge, just listening, waiting. History had turned its back, but the humans never stopped walking. The council finally noticed when one of their own ships refused to acknowledge a recall command. The Illuminary, a Varn diplomatic cruiser, had docked for routine calibration at a neutral station in the fringe. Its crew returned to find their navigation AI quoting entire paragraphs from a Terran history book about the fall of Rome. The helm refused input, instead demanding the crew define the word resilience. When they tried to manually override it, the ship played Bohemian Rhapsody at full volume on loop until someone screamed. That ship was never seen again. The council scrambled. What began as whispers became sightings. Mysterious vessels blinking in and out of FTL lanes. They didn't follow standard flight paths, didn't answer hails, and often left behind graffiti in ancient Terran languages. One flagship of the Dominion fleet returned from patrol with "Remember Earth" spray painted across its hull in a shade of neon pink no known civilization claimed to manufacture. Embarrassing, infuriating, hilarious. If you weren't a Dominion admiral, they responded with force. Patrols doubled, border sweeps initiated. Propaganda broadcasts reasserted the myth of humanity. The message was loud. There is no Earth, there never was, and you definitely shouldn't be humming their music. Then came the pirates. They didn't call themselves pirates. They called themselves memory couriers. Their ships were old Dominion transports, rebuilt, repainted, reprogrammed. They hijacked data lines, boarded trade ships, and left behind hard drives containing nothing but ancient Earth memes, poetry, and old sitcoms. Some crews tried to throw them out. Others watched the files. Some laughed. Some cried. One Char navigator who watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air declared it a spiritual awakening and resigned to find out what a Philadelphia is. Despite all attempts, the council couldn't stop the infection, because that's what it was, mimetic infection, a quiet invasion. Human culture was viral. It adapted and mutated, hid in joke formats and subroutines, and reproduced faster than the council could contain it. One species tried to quarantine it by banning emotional media. Their birth rates dropped 30%. Crime doubled. They gave up and reintroduced sitcoms. Guess Who's? Tensions built. Border outposts caught ghost signals. Snippets of ancient Earth speeches laced into hyperspace transmissions. Some were intercepted. One contained a distorted version of Churchill's "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" mixed with heavy bass and a remixed tag, DJ Winston. Some believed it was just Earth echoing through space. Others knew better. Then came the Punchline incident. A Dominion propaganda AI was hacked mid-broadcast. For 17 minutes, instead of usual council-approved content, the network aired a stand-up routine from a defunct Terran comic. The alien audience, initially confused, began to laugh. The humor didn't always translate, but the delivery, the timing, the absurdity, the humanness pierced them. When the council restored the feed, thousands protested. They wanted more. Not war. Not conquest. Just one more joke. The council panicked. They declared the hackers terrorists. Problem: there was no one to arrest. The comic had been dead for over 800 years. Suddenly, aliens who had never even seen a human were demanding access to banned literature. Children drew Earth flags they'd never been taught. Universities quietly reintegrated erased human thinkers under pseudonyms. Some species began naming their children after humans. No single moment caused a tipping point, but the most cited one was a small, unregistered ship showing up at the Kellner Trade Summit. It broadcast no credentials. Its hull was scorched, barely holding together. No escort, no weapons. It should have been vaporized, but it wasn't, because it played music. Classical, Beethoven, then jazz, then a chaotic transition into punk rock, overlaid with Terran languages, laughter, and a voice repeating one sentence. History is not theirs to write. The delegates were silent. Then one stood. A non-aligned elder from the Siltari clade, wrinkled and blind, raised a tendril and said, "I remember this sound." No one challenged him. After that, it was out of the council's hands. The blackout failed. The fringe world stopped cooperating. Species once loyal to the Dominion refused to suppress their own curiosity. They started digging. And what they found changed everything. They learned that the drive used in 38% of galactic ships was based on a Terran design labeled not optimal but works. They found that one of the most used mathematical models for predicting star collapse was authored by a teenager from Sri Lanka who never left Earth and submitted it in an online science fair. They learned the weirdest fact of all. Humanity had never been the strongest, fastest, or most advanced. Just the loudest, the most annoyingly persistent. The kind of species that, upon discovering fire, immediately tried to cook meat, scare predators, and create indoor mood lighting. The kind that turned war into both tragedy and blockbuster cinema. The kind that could cry over dead fictional characters and still argue on forums about how unrealistic the spaceship physics were in their own shows. And perhaps most dangerous of all, the kind that would look you straight in the eye with no weapons, no plan, say, "Bet I can fix that," before duct taping your ship's oxygen system and playing rock music while it flew. The Varn couldn't fight that. They tried. They launched memory purges, cyber wars, covert assassinations. But every failure became another story. Every lie they told about humans was met with a meme, a song, a joke, or a child whispering an old name into the dark. The final straw? A Varn educational AI, used to indoctrinate younglings, suddenly began quoting Mark Twain during a lesson on proper etiquette. The line, "Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience." It spread, rapidly, across the stars. Children asked their parents, who was Twain, and what's sarcasm, and why do humans sound more fun than us? The Varn attempted to issue a correction. Too late. The silence was broken. And humanity? Humanity smiled. They never expected humanity to fight with stories. But here they were, the galaxy slowly unraveling, not with fleets or firepower, but with laughter, memory, and stubborn refusal to be forgotten. The no comment wasn't a warship. It was a library on wheels, or more accurately, on thrusters. It carried thousands of digital archives, old Earth films, recipes, music, and speeches. To any Dominion patrol, it looked like a drifting relic, until it started broadcasting. The transmissions were subtle at first, half-second flashes of Earth culture woven into routine data streams. A snippet of a blues riff, a line from a forgotten speech, then entire stories, relayed in languages the Council had no time to censor. They found themselves smiling, humming, sometimes quoting the words they barely understood. This was subversion without bullets. But it wasn't just media. It was ideology. The idea that history belonged to those who remembered it, and humans remembered. On a neutral station orbiting the neutral planet, a gathering was held. Representatives of the most powerful species, the Varn, the Charn, the Silthari, and even the elusive Tauren, sat tense and quiet. They debated what to do about the human resurgence. A Silthari philosopher finally broke the silence. "They are like a virus," she said, "a viral meme that refuses to die. But unlike other viruses, they don't kill. They infect. They inspire." The Varn diplomat scoffed. "They're nothing more than echoes, ghost stories to frighten children." The Silthari smiled thinly. "Echoes can topple empires, and children grow up." They debated weaponizing the history purge. Erase every trace, obliterate every file, disconnect every whisper. But how do you kill a ghost that's already in everyone's mind? The human colonies didn't try to conquer. They didn't send emissaries or demand recognition. They rebuilt from the wreckage of erasure. Homes made from scavenged scrap. Communities bound by shared stories. They weren't unified by government, but by narrative. Every story told, every song sung, every joke shared was a declaration of existence. They were the living archives. One of their greatest achievements wasn't a weapon or a spaceship. It was a mosaic, a network of encrypted human history files spread across hundreds of stations, hidden in plain sight inside popular entertainment, trading manifests, and even medical scanners. A decentralized digital campfire where anyone could sit, listen, and remember. The Council's tech experts called it a data cancer. Humans called it home. Meanwhile, across the Outer Rim, a group of young rebels hijacked a Dominion propaganda transmitter and replaced it with a human sitcom marathon. Species across the sector started binge-watching, confusion turning to delight. For once, propaganda was beat by punchlines. The Dominion fought back with censorship bots that detected and deleted excessive humor, but failed when the humans started embedding jokes inside other jokes. The bots began to malfunction, eventually broadcasting nothing but stand-up routines in endless loops. In desperation, the Council tried diplomatic talks. They sent envoys to the Fringe, hoping to negotiate a ceasefire with the humans. The first human they met was an engineer named Kai, who greeted them with a cup of tea brewed from an old Terran recipe. He smiled and said, "You want us to stop? We can't stop. Not when our history is still missing a page." The envoys were puzzled. "Your history?" one asked. Kai nodded. "You erased our stories from your records, but you can't erase what's inside us. Our history isn't just facts and dates. It's the jokes we tell, the songs we sing, the way we fix a broken ship with a roll of duct tape and a prayer." One envoy asked, "Why bother?" Kai shrugged. "Because stories are the last thing they can't take away. You can wipe our names from your archives, but you can't wipe our memories. And if we remember, we exist." The envoys returned with a new perspective. They reported that humanity wasn't just a species to be contained or forgotten. It was a force of nature, not violent, not overtly aggressive, but relentless and impossible to ignore. News spread fast. Humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving in the margins, rewriting what it meant to exist in the galaxy. One young pilot, Rena, modified her ship to broadcast Terran rock music, lyrics translated into half a dozen alien dialects. Whenever she passed Dominion patrols, she turned up the volume and waved. Some patrols chased her. Most didn't. Humans never fought fair or conventional battles. They fought with memes, music, and stubbornness. Meanwhile, back at the council, debates turn into panic. How do we erase something that doesn't stay erased? How do we fight a species that makes resistance a joke? One cynical diplomat muttered, "Maybe we should just admit defeat and ask for the recipe to their tea." The answer came from an unexpected place. An ancient AI built by a now extinct race sent a cryptic message to the council. History is not written by the conqueror. It is sung by the survivor. The message spread through council networks like wildfire. The humans weren't just survivors. They were the ultimate storytellers. As the years passed, the human influence crept into every corner of galactic culture. Music festivals dedicated to Earth's lost bands. Theater performances reenacting long-lost human dramas. Even fashion adopted human eccentricities, mismatched socks, colorful scarves, and inexplicable love for hats. The Varn found themselves humming songs they didn't understand. The Charn started wearing T-shirts with cryptic English slogans. The Silthari debated the philosophical implications of Friday Night Lights. And the Dominion? They grudgingly admitted humans had won the war without firing a shot, because history belongs to those who remember it. And humanity? Humanity had the best memories of all. They never stopped telling their stories. By the time the council finally accepted what was happening, it was too late. Humanity wasn't just back in the records. They were rewriting the entire galactic narrative. The final proof came not from a fleet or a declaration, but from a curious alliance. The memory couriers, the fringe pirates, and even some council dissidents formed a coalition called the Keepers of the Story. They didn't want power. They didn't want territory. They wanted one thing: to protect the right to remember. Their headquarters? An ancient space station converted into a vast archive called the Sanctuary of Echoes. Here, every story, joke, and song humanity had ever created was stored, protected, and shared. And anyone who tried to silence it was met with a response so human, so unpredictable, it shattered even the most rigid council policies. Like the time a Dominion official tried to censor a poem about Earth's old space race. The next day, thousands of holograms appeared across the Dominion's worlds, reciting the poem backwards while wearing virtual Groucho Marx glasses. Or when a Silthari religious leader banned human humor from their temples. Overnight, all their sermons mysteriously included awkward dad jokes. Why did the alien refuse to abduct the comedian? Because he was too spaced out. It became clear, erasing humanity was impossible because humanity was everywhere. In their stories, their humor, their mistakes, and their victories. The humans had turned what was meant to be their erasure into a cosmic comeback tour. Not by might, but by memory. Not by conquest, but by culture. And yes, by the occasional sarcastic comment. As more species embraced human stories, a curious thing happened. The galaxy grew smaller. The distrust began to fade. The old grudges, the fears, the paranoia, all softened by shared laughter over a bad joke or a timeless tale of resilience. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, a child whispered the words of an ancient Earth lullaby and smiled. At a diplomatic summit, an alien delegate quoted Shakespeare, poorly translated but passionately delivered, and earned a standing ovation. A human engineer on a distant outpost fixed a critical life support system, using duct tape and a prayer, then laughed when an alien asked why she didn't use standard parts. Because she said, sometimes you gotta make it work with what you've got. That's history, and that's us. The council issued a final statement, oddly humble for their usual tone. Humanity's persistence has reshaped the galaxy's understanding of history. It is clear. History belongs not to the conquerors or the conquerors' conquerors, but to those who tell the story. That story? Humanity's story. The one they tried to erase. The one they can't forget. And maybe, just maybe, the one that will carry the galaxy into a future none of them could have imagined. Because history isn't a weapon. It's a legacy. And humanity? They just took ownership.